A sweet young woman has a tyrannical husband who mistreats her. So she decides to be generous and speed up his meeting with God. She hires a professional hitman, but unexpectedly begins to develop romantic feelings for him. Will she pay him twice, once for the job, and once for dinner? Hey, everyone, I'm Ava, and tonight I'll be recapping the action comedy, Hitman. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care.
It's for your own safety.
Gary Johnson is a mild-mannered, dedicated teacher who shares his knowledge of psychology and philosophy with his students at the University of New Orleans. Gary Johnson tells his students they must take their lives into their own hands and live life to the fullest. A guy from the back row mocks him because he drives a Honda Civic. Gary lives a simple life in a house with 2 cats named ID and EGO. He has always been interested in electronics, so in addition to his teaching duties, he supplements his salary by working part-time as an undercover operative for the New Orleans police. Initially, he was involved in an investigation related to a murder, and his outstanding work led to a promotion. He steps in for Jasper, who received a 120-day suspension for excessive use of force, and now works as a hitman within the police undercover team. In his job, Gary adopts a new persona for each client and situation. When he gets his first assignment as a hitman, Gary reluctantly takes on the identity of Billy as he meets with Craig. During the meeting, he discusses his plan to eliminate the target without raising suspicion, ensuring that Craig's alibi is solid. However, Gary's true intention is to extort a confession from Craig and then use that information to have him arrested. In reality, Gary never carries out the murders. He acts as a decoy. He meets with people who are willing to pay him to kill someone. His goal is to get them to openly admit their intent, after which they are arrested. As they were leaving, 2 police cars suddenly appeared and arrested Craig. Gary managed to secure the money and extract the necessary information from him. After the job was done, he changed into more suitable clothes. On the way home, we learned that Gary has a wide range of interests, including a fascination with birds, and that he's extremely intelligent. Gary tells us that professional hitmen don't really exist, but his job isn't to shatter fantasies. It's to be one. Gary's main qualification for his new role is his deep interest in the eternal mysteries of human consciousness and behavior. The next person who wants Gary to kill someone is a guy with a deer named Walt. They easily come to an agreement. Gary would take on a new identity for each task, ensuring that he forced people to confess their crimes and also reveal full details about why they planned to kill certain individuals. You might wonder how Gary gets his clients. A recommendation usually finds its way to the police, who make sure to get his number. The next client is a rapper whose album is dropping soon. He wants promotion and gets it at a bargain from Gary. Then there's Monty, who wants to kill his own mother. He has no money, so he offers Gary his video games instead. A woman wants to get rid of her husband for financial gain. But the most intriguing of all is a lady who also wants her husband gone. She doesn't have the money to pay, so she offers Gary a speedboat instead. By hiring a hitman, Gary would receive the money up front, and those payments would serve as evidence against those who hired the killers. One day, while teaching his students, Gary is visited by his ex-girlfriend. It's never pleasant when your ex is expecting a child with someone else. She tells him something important for the course of his story. Everyone's at least a little messed up. You just have to find someone whose messed upness matches yours. She suggests that he should start seeing someone. Gary tells her about his new job and how he constantly witnesses love turning into hatred, where murder becomes the only way out. Later, at the police station, Jasper, who had been suspended for a while, receives some unsettling news. He learns that Gary has been doing an excellent job in his absence, to the point where Jasper is no longer as necessary. The chief tells him that Gary's conviction rate is high and even adds that he's a better actor than Jasper. He reminds Jasper that he should be grateful to the police union because without them, he wouldn't have a job at all. Jasper, to say the least, is furious and doesn't take the criticism well. Gary takes on a new case, and this time it's the sweet girl, Madison. Madison, a woman who moved to New Orleans, hired Gary as a hitman. She is married to Ray Masters, who is involved in the family drug business. Since childhood, she has had everything she ever wanted, which is likely why she is very spoiled. Madison has a clean record, except for a few reports of domestic violence. Gary has developed a new identity, Ron, to introduce himself to Madison. Ron is a confident and charismatic man. She asks Gary if she can have some pie, since her husband keeps her on ridiculous diets and she's craving it. Gary and Madison start talking about cats and have a great time, but soon, they remember why they're really here. Madison, known for her kind nature, is clearly going through a difficult time due to her husband's oppressive behavior. Her controlling husband forbids her from working or engaging in any activities. Gary realizes that Madison is not a criminal and decides to show her compassion. He allows her to keep the money she offered him and suggests that she start fresh in a new location, far from her abusive husband. He even offers his help in the future if she ever needs support in reevaluating her situation. On his way home, Gary's friends call him, mocking him for turning into a therapist, especially the ever-annoying Jasper. Gary tries to explain that Madison isn't a killer. His partners, Claudetta and Phil, think he let her go just because she's sweet. But Gary stands firm, insisting that he works for the greater good. In the next scene, we see Gary in court. A lawyer argues that he is the most deceitful kind of person there is. The man literally prevents murders. These lawyers really do say the dumbest things for money. Meanwhile, the woman who once offered Gary a yacht to take out her husband is now free. Her husband forgave her. What do you think she's planning next? The next person to hire Gary is a bearded man. Hopefully, he'll shave once he's in prison. Gary tries to push Madison out of his mind and focus on his job. As he spends time with his cat, his phone buzzes with a message. It's from Mrs. Madison. She sends him a brochure about rescue dogs. Even though this isn't part of his professional work, Gary believes that Madison actually meant to send the message to Ron, his alternate identity. Because of this, he decides to go to the scene. Gary meets with Madison. She tells him that she immediately fled from her abusive husband and now has her own house. A divorce is on the way. Madison thanks Ron because, without his help, she wouldn't have been able to escape the cage her husband kept her in. During their conversation, Madison has to leave to help the rescue dogs, while Ron goes to play with the kids. Madison watches him with admiration. That evening, they gather at a bar, sharing stories about their lives. Madison says she can't believe Ron is a killer, considering he's such a good person. Ron tells her that sometimes he has to kill certain people to protect others. Madison shows great interest in Ron, and the feeling is mutual. Their heartfelt conversation leads them to Madison's beautiful home. Despite the unusual circumstances, Ron, also known as Gary, spends the night with Madison. Gary hasn't revealed his true identity to Madison, but he has shared some honest details about his life. Although he's had past relationships, his demanding job has made it difficult to maintain a conventional love life. Despite this, Madison is happy to continue her connection with Gary. To keep their relationship secure, Gary establishes a set of rules. One of the main rules is that they must never meet at Gary's place. Additionally, Gary is forbidden from sharing any information about his whereabouts at any time. This precaution is essential to ensure Madison's safety in case he's ever followed or tracked. Despite these strict rules, Madison is completely fine with continuing their relationship under these conditions. Gary starts his days as an exceptional university professor, but when night falls, he transforms into the elusive hitman Ron, spending passionate evenings with Madison. Buckle up. Things are about to get turbulent. However, besides teaching at the university, Gary also successfully manages his side job as a hitman. The next person he hands over to the police is a man who wanted to kill his wife. In court, a lawyer calls Gary a psychopathic predator. Gary tries to explain that he merely completes the picture that the murder-for-hire clients have already set up themselves. Ron and Madison leave their love nest and go on their first date. On their first date, Ron teaches Madison how to shoot. On the way to the club, they talk about the moon, and inside, they dance with longing and passion. After leaving the club, they are approached by Madison's husband, Ray. He starts displaying aggressive behavior toward them, which triggers an angry reaction from Gary, who pulls out a gun and points it at Ray. In the end, Gary manages to scare Ray off and leaves with Madison. As they drive in the car, Madison tells Ron that he was incredible and that Ray rarely backs down in front of anyone. She also admits that no one has ever stood up for her like that before. While enjoying dessert after their wild night, Ron discovers that Madison knew Ray would be at the club that evening. Madison apologizes and promises to make it up to him when they get home. Just then, Ron spots Jasper, who immediately approaches their table. Fortunately, Jasper refrains from mentioning Ron's real name in front of Madison, avoiding what could have been a serious problem. Tonight, Madison will be signing a new contract. The next day, when Gary arrives at his part-time job, he is surprised to see who his new client is. Gary didn't expect this. He sits down behind him and starts a conversation. The spoiled man wants Gary to kill Madison. This is how rich, entitled men usually operate when they don't get what they want. A typical example of someone who thinks money can buy everything. As the conversation unfolds, the rich brat reveals that he wants Gary to kill Madison's new boyfriend as well, which means he's unknowingly asking Gary to kill himself. Ray insists that the hitman, in this case, Gary, must look Madison in the eyes and say, "This is from your loving husband," before ending her life. The entire time, they haven't been sitting face to face, ensuring that Ray never sees Gary's face. But after hearing everything, Gary finally reveals his identity. The guy just runs away. Before Gary starts his car and heads back to the love nest, Jasper shows up. Jasper tells him that he's totally fine with what's happening between him and Madison, casually adding that he's also had his fun with suspects before. Gary feels a huge weight lifted off his chest. He goes to Madison and tells her that her ex-husband wants her dead. Madison remains calm, acting as if there's nothing to worry about. Later, Gary continues teaching his students. During an outdoor lesson, he instructs them on how they must take matters into their own hands.
When did our professor get hot?
Gary heads to his part-time job. The entire team gathers in front of their boss. With a serious expression, the boss informs them that Madison's husband, Ray, has been found dead. There is suspicion that he was involved in a bad drug deal, which led to his death. A single gunshot, likely from a very specific type of firearm. The biggest suspicion falls on Madison. Looking straight at Gary, Jasper comments that maybe the new boyfriend did it. They head to Virgo's bar, where the police are already aware that Madison's new boyfriend once pulled a gun on Ray. They just don't know who he is yet. Jasper, fully aware of Gary's relationship with Madison, says that he has been following his instincts for years, and they have never failed him. Gary makes it clear he didn't kill Ray. After work, Gary goes to Madison, and she knows that Ray is dead. She seems unusually calm. Madison asks him if he had anything to do with it. Ron responds that he doesn't go around killing people for free. As Ron comforts her, Madison reveals that she was the one who killed him. Ron starts freaking out, but Madison doesn't understand why. He does it all the time. Madison explained that she heard from Gary that Ray had hired him to kill her, which scared her and led her to take drastic measures in a moment of panic. Gary admitted that he is not a real killer, but someone who exposes people's crimes and brings them to justice. In addition to his vigilante activities, Gary also works as a university professor. He also revealed that his real name is Gary, not Ron.
Who the fuck is Gary?
Meanwhile, Gary is called to the police station after they receive new information regarding Ray's death. He heads to the station after being summoned. When he arrives, the chief tells him that Madison is the prime suspect. Gary also learns that 6 months ago, Ray increased his life insurance policy by $1 million, with Madison listed as the sole beneficiary. Still deeply in love, Gary tells his colleagues that he doesn't believe Madison did it. Jasper persuades the team to send Gary to her in an attempt to get a confession about the murder. The chief likes the idea, and the team moves into action. Jasper enjoys seeing Ron in trouble. When they arrived at Madison's house, they discreetly attached a wire to Gary so they could listen in on the conversation. Just before entering, Gary suddenly signaled to Madison over the phone that the police were listening in. Gary is on Madison's side, and she must follow his instructions. Although they share a close relationship, they maintain the pretense of being mere acquaintances. Gary advised Madison to deny all accusations to avoid raising suspicion. With a firm voice, he gave her crucial guidance on how to avoid any mistakes, emphasizing the potential consequences of her words. With their resourcefulness and quick thinking, they easily resolved the final issue, the $1 million and the life insurance. Madison says she doesn't care about the money and barely even knew about the policy. In the end, Gary tells her to throw him out of the house and yell at him. They perform so convincingly that the entire team believes Madison isn't guilty. Perhaps Ray was just another random victim of the drug trade. Everything goes perfectly, and by the time Gary reaches the van, no one suspects that Madison could have done it. Jasper also says they won't bother looking for the guy who pointed a gun at Ray outside the club. It's pointless. Ron drives to Madison. Later that evening, Gary arrives at Madison's house and is surprised to find Jasper waiting for him. Jasper had followed them, sensing that something was off. He tells them they're great actors and that he just had to step behind the stage. Jasper demands money from Gary and Madison to settle the situation. If they refuse to cooperate, he has enough evidence to send Madison to prison. Furthermore, Gary also helped with the murder, so he too would be convicted. Jasper says he's certain that Madison killed Ray because Gary could never have done it. But as they continue talking, Jasper suddenly begins to feel nauseous and passes out. Madison had put drugs in his beer. If he wakes up, she'll go to prison, but the overdose could kill him. This woman is truly not normal. Gary takes responsibility. He covers Jasper's head with a bag. Since he's a corrupt cop, even the police have no better opinion of him than Gary and Madison do. The plan is to stage a suicide. They intend to leave him in his car at a secluded spot with drugs and no signs of a struggle. It would look like a suicide. There's no one who would question the story, especially since his wife had left him years ago. Madison and Gary admit that they are in love with each other and agree to stay together through thick and thin. Through their combined effort, they have managed to overcome the challenging and deadly case, strengthening their bond as a couple. A few years later, we see Gary still working as a professor. In class, Gary encourages his students to believe they can become different and better people. He also motivates them to embrace change and transformation. At the end of the semester, he tells them to seize the identity they want for themselves. There's Gary's daughter, and Madison is also there. Their home looks beautiful. They also have a son. Before dinner, they tell their children the story of their love and how they met, leaving out a few small details. Like, for example, that tiny little incident with Jasper. Madison and Ron, now Gary, are happily married. That's all for this movie. Subscribe to the channel so we can reach 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible, and I'll see you in the next videos.